In this video, we're going to discuss the periodic property inspection checklist. This is a checklist that I'd created a number of years ago. You may find some things on there that, or not on there, that should be, and yeah, that's perfectly normal. I think we've covered most of the bases in this inspection checklist. We would complete these property inspection checklists periodically, just to go through and kind of be proactive and catch small issues before they become big issues. They can also be used for move-out inspections as well. And they could even, components of this can even be used if you're going to be taking a walk around a property that's for sale and you might be considering a purchase of. So I'm just going to start off here on our inspection list. Number one is door functionality. And again, some of these things you're going to say, boy, that's pretty low level. That's really not that important. Take this from the perspective of a new tenant, who's going to be moving in. The things that you might have been used to or the things that you might have thought weren't big issues, they're going to be big issues for a tenant. Door functionality is one of them. Do they close properly? Do they lock securely? I'd spoken in a previous video about how in New York State we have the four seasons, so you get humidity levels that increase and decrease, and you get wooden doors that swell up, windows that swell up as well. They can become harder to secure. Sometimes they need to be adjusted so that these doors and windows lock properly as well. The tenant's going to notice that. So doors, do they close properly? Do the locks work? Window functionality, do they stay open and on their own, or do they slide back down? A lot of properties in the city of Albany and Schenectady in particular, you're talking about 100-year-old buildings. They've got wooden windows with the old pulleys, and more and more often you're seeing Department of Codes demanding that a window be replaced, or that, essentially saying you can't use these old style windows anymore. Windows need to have window pins in them to ensure, they're kind of break-in resistant. Do they have locks on them? Are there any broken panes of glass in a window? Do they have screens? City of Albany in particular, they're always really on top of making sure that windows have screens in them. If, a lot of these windows are older buildings, you can't get those windows anymore. You'd have to have them custom made. They'd be very expensive. So, you can go to a local big box store and you can get the adjustable window screens. The codes departments, I would, of course, disclaimer, always contact your local codes department and verify that they would accept an adjustable screen. In my experience, they have, and they've been understanding of the fact that, having one custom made would be very expensive, and that, in older style windows, they're not going to be available anymore. But always check with a codes officer first to ensure that it's something that they would accept during a codes inspection. And that's another video entirely on the codes process and how it varies from city to city. So stay tuned for that one. Next up on the list, the furnace or boiler. Is the filter in good condition? Is the furnace or boiler operational? Are we noticing, if it's a boiler, are we noticing, any leaks, any issues, any corrosion around any of the joints, any of the connection points? Things that could become bigger issues later down the road. If it's a steam boiler, which we've seen, is the water clear in the tube? Does it need to be purged? Because what's going to happen is it might look fine now, or you might see that it's not a big deal now, but it's going to break on January 1st, I can promise you. Hot water heater, is it functioning? Are there any signs of leaks? Around the base of the hot water heater, do we notice any corrosion? Around the top of the hot water heater where the lines come in, do we notice any corrosion around the top of it as well? Always test it. Don't test it for 2 minutes, because hot water heaters eventually fill up with sediment over time, and you might have 3 to 4 minutes of hot water. You might not have 5 minutes of it. You might not notice that until a tenant moves in and tries to take a shower. So run the water for a good long time. Take your time on these things. A couple minutes now will save you an after-hours emergency call later. Gates and fences. Do the gates work properly? Do they secure properly? They tend to settle, over time. Are the fence panels in good condition? Again, you might see one now and say, yeah, I'll get to that later. We get terrible wind out here. It's very windy in the capital region. If you've got a compromised fence panel or siding on the house for that matter, it's going to get worse in the heavy wind. Deal with it now when it's an inexpensive fix versus later when you show up and half your fence is down. Lights, do all the lights fixtures within the property, do they function properly and are they safe? Are we using the right bulbs? Do they spark? Um, if you use a dimmable bulb in a non-dimmable fixture, you're going to have issues with the bulb itself. And the tenant's going to report the issue and say you need a new light fixture when maybe all you need is a new bulb. Get all this crossed out now. Make sure it works fine now. Test it thoroughly now so you don't have a tenant calling you up to report the issue. Walls and ceilings. List any dings, any dents, any miscellaneous damage. Is there any sign of water penetration? Do we have any staining? Do we have any moist, wet spots on the wall indicative of an issue behind the wall that we should really address? Because that brings up the M word, mold, which is a very bad word, and you don't ever want to have to deal with that. New York State, has rolled out new regulations not too long ago around mold, and New York State takes it very, very seriously, and mold gets very expensive very quickly. So make sure you don't have any, and make sure if you have any risk factors that could contribute to the formation or growth of mold, you eliminate those immediately because mold is a big deal. Smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, make sure they're all functioning properly. A number of years ago, they changed the fire code requirement to 10-year lithium sealed smoke alarms, which is great because we used to have a lot of, the 9-volt or AA battery powered smoke alarms. Tenants would often take the batteries out when their kid's RC car wasn't working, so the 10-year lithium sealed are much better. However, they don't often last 10 years. So you want to test them thoroughly because it's very common for them to expire well in advance of that 10-year lifespan. Toilets, do they flush properly? Do they fill properly? Do they run? Take the lid off the back of the tank. How's it look inside? A toilet tank kit is $19.99. Flapper, the whole assembly. I would have clients who'd have me periodically just replace them. It's a lot cheaper than having a toilet that runs and you get a $500, $600 water bill from a running toilet, per quarter. Check the shutoff valve on the wall. Does it have condensation on it? Is it leaking? Does it open and close properly? If you see a lot of rust on that shutoff valve, get it fixed. Because what's going to happen is when you need that shutoff valve to work, it's going to be seized up and it won't work. You probably have to shut off chase the line down somewhere else, hope that you find another shutoff somewhere in the line. If not, of course it'll happen at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday and you'll have to have the water shut off to the building, because you don't have another shutoff, especially if it's an older building. So check this stuff now. It takes 30 seconds to do now. It's a lot cheaper to replace a shutoff valve that's dripping or that's got serious corrosion on it before it fails. It's so much cheaper to do it before it fails than after. So check your toilets because toilets get very expensive as well. They're flushing properly. Do we have a clogged drain? Do we have a partial clog, in the drain? When you flush a toilet, are you hearing the tub, which is lower than it? Are you hearing it, gurgle or bubble? I mean, get it now because it's going to break on you at 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. Faucets, do they have good water pressure, both the hot and cold side? Do they drain properly? Is the trap in good? Open up the doors underneath. Look at the trap. Is the trap in good shape? Is it held up with a stick? Yeah, that's a telltale sign that you probably need to get that looked at. Are there any signs of leaking anywhere? Check all the drains in the house for that matter. Make sure everything is draining smoothly. With the faucets, if it doesn't have good water pressure, first thing you do, unscrew. It can be tough. It can be really discreet. It will unscrew the head on there. And there's going to be a little filter in there. You can actually replace those filters if you want. But typically you can just flip it over, run water over that filter, move your hand over to clear off the calcium and the hard water, the mineral buildup, if you will, from having tap water. And that will immediately put it back on. That'll immediately improve the water pressure. You get tenants, when a tenant reports an issue, they're not going to tell you, hey, the screen on my faucet is clogged. They're going to tell you my faucet's not working. We need to replace the whole thing. Totally unnecessary the majority of the time. So check your screens on all your faucets. Floors. Is there any damage to the floors? Find specific locations, of that damage. If it's in a big traffic area, it's only going to get worse. So you might want to deal with that before it gets worse. Stairways. Inspect all the stairs for safety issues. Inspect the railings and the handrails. Give it a good shake. Is it mounted properly? You don't want someone to go through a railing. That's going to get you into court. Let's see, exterior of the property. Inspect the exterior of the property. Inspect the rear stairways, the entrances throughout the property for any potential issues. Check for overgrowth, for plants that are growing right next to the house that would eventually have a root system that compromises the foundation. Doesn't take these invasive species long to grow. They'll grow very quickly. Before you know it, a small issue that was easy to fix will become a more expensive issue down the road. I love trees. I love shrubs. I don't want them anywhere near the house. Get them away from the house. The more foliage you have growing right next to the house, you're trapping moisture. You're getting stains in siding. You got to pressure wash it. You're inviting insects and wildlife to come in because you're giving them a bridge right to your house. Get all that stuff away from your house. Let's get some sun shining on the exterior of the property to dry things out and keep it nice and dry. Again, I love trees. I don't want them anywhere near the house. They drop all kinds of debris as well. And they also have leaves. So when fall comes around and you have to have the leaf cleanup done at your home, it's a lot less expensive with less trees right up against your house, less leaves sitting up against your house, soaking wet, trapping moisture, no good, all bad. So let's get that taken care of as well. We have vines growing up the side of the house. Vines are really cool. Vines are terrible for your home. So get them off your house. Again, I love all these things, but I don't like them in a property. Let's check the central AC. Check the condensing unit on the outside of the house. Is it overgrown? Does it have foliage, vines, and all kinds of plant matter growing all over it? Note any particular issues with it. Good idea to get it serviced. Is it filthy? I've seen, in apartment complexes where they mow the community and they're just blasting the grass right up against that condensing unit. It's ultimately clogging up the unit, and it's giving it a premature failure rate on it over time. You can have that cleaned. You can have those cleaned, and you should. You should keep your things in good shape. They'll last you a lot longer. Heating, ensure all the thermostats are functional, and the system is working properly. Maintain the thermostat temperature setting, to the desired level, meaning when you're going and inspecting a place, well, what is the thermostat set at? If you're doing a periodic inspection, does the tenant have access to the thermostat? If they do, say it's a heat and hot water included type situation where the utilities are included in the rent, you may want to have in the lease language in there stating, you're going to have it set at, say, 72 degrees, which I think is, as per New York State, falls well within the range of an acceptable temperature range, right? Well, if the tenant has access to that, you might walk in and find it set to 82. You might want to secure that thermostat. You might want to consider getting a secure thermostat. You can find them online. They're not terribly expensive. They have password protection in them. So you can set the temperature of the thermostat to that New York State preferred level, and then it's got a password on it so that it can't be manipulated. And tenants will still find a way to manipulate it. They can certainly, alter the temperature in the immediate vicinity of the thermostat through some creative footwork that I won't go into. And that will trick it into thinking, so you might want to relocate that thermostat to somewhere else that's more appropriate where it can't be manipulated. So keep an eye on that. Just covering all the bases. We hope these things never happen, but we've seen that they do. Anything property specific, that needs to be identified here. So mail, is it place any mail, if they have the mailboxes that are inside the unit, what oftentimes happens, if they're in the foyer or the entryway, what oftentimes happens is the junk mail finds its way all over the floor. Get all that cleaned up and tidied up. You can put a trash can on site, but then the expectation often becomes that you or someone from your team empty that trash can. So the trash cans have been kind of a mixed bag. In our experience, having the trash can there, we found that they've been utilized more. But then again, they're not emptied out. Tenants generally won't empty out those trash cans on their own. So it becomes yet another responsibility of yours. So it's you weighing the pros and cons. Like, if I don't have the trash can there, will they throw the trash on the ground, or will they maybe bring it into their house? You've got to kind of feel that out over time at the property. It sounds on its face as like a good idea to provide trash cans, but I've actually had it be more harm than good. Check the trash. Speaking of, you know, trash cans on site, if there's a dumpster on site, if there's a dumpster corral on site, if they've got the totes, check the trash cans themselves. If make sure they're in good shape. Make sure the trash area is in good shape. It's free and clear of debris. You don't want to invite squirrels in. Squirrels love trash. Want to keep those areas clean at all times. It's also an opportunity. If you're in an apartment, complex there, and you find that some people aren't putting their trash in the dumpster, throwing it on the ground. It's amazing what you'll find. You'll find bags of trash on the ground because people are, you know, too lazy to put it in the dumpster, and it'll have their mail in it. Document that. Then reach out to the tenant and say, look, I found your trash with your name on the letters on the ground. This needs to get into the dumpster. The next time I clean it up, I'll be billing you. That's not unreasonable to expect tenants to be responsible for their own trash. So again, I think this is a good sort of starter list for anyone who wants to utilize this when they're looking at a prospective property, or more specifically when they're completing like a periodic property inspection, of a place that they currently own, and they just want to get a really good sort of comprehensive review of the property in general. You can hand something like this off to an employee, and they can follow it as a template. I think as it pertains to reviewing a property that's for sale, obviously there are some components of this that are missing. I would expect to put together a more comprehensive list, which I will do so for you in the future for the prospective purchase of a property. I have an additional list that includes things like checking out the roof, checking out the gutters, and things like that. But stay tuned. That will be in videos to come. I hope that this information has been helpful.